Zena had 5 seconds to decide. Watch the Korean CEO die at his own charity gala, or spill an entire bottle of wine on him and destroy everything. Her tray was already shaking as she stepped forward. Security moved toward her. His business partner's eyes narrowed, and Zena did the one thing a catering worker should never do. She threw red wine directly at the most powerful man in Seoul. Before we continue, I need you to do something. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your engagement keeps these stories coming. And don't forget to subscribe because what happens next will completely shock you. The hall went silent. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. Champagne glasses paused halfway to lips. Men in expensive suits turned sharply, shock rippling through the crowd like electricity. Security guards reached for their concealed weapons, bodies tensing. Lee Jun-ho stood perfectly still, tall, composed in his designer tuxedo now soaked with red wine that dripped from his lapels onto the marble floor. The most influential businessman in South Korea, and suddenly the center of a humiliating spectacle. The wine lasted maybe 3 seconds, but in those seconds, Zena felt the full weight of her decision crush her chest. She was finished, fired, possibly worse. As the last drops fell, she stepped closer and pressed something into his wet palm, a napkin with writing. While her hand trembled violently as her mouth barely reached his ear, her English accent thick with urgency. "Check your drink. Poison. Don't react." Hands grabbed her immediately. Security yanked her backward so hard she stumbled, nearly falling. Someone shouted in Korean. Someone else cursed. Chairs scraped as men stood, ready for violence. "What is this?" The business partner, Mr. Choi, demanded, his face red with rage. "Security, remove her now." Zena didn't fight. Then her heart pounded so violently she thought everyone could hear it, but her eyes stayed locked on Junho's face. She needed to see something, anything that told her she hadn't just destroyed her life for nothing. For a moment, his expression was unreadable. Then his fingers closed around the napkin. It was barely noticeable, but it changed everything. "Wait." His voice was calm, controlled, absolute. The room went completely silent. "Sir, she assaulted you," a guard said. I gripped tight on Zena's arm. Junho's gaze cut through the man like ice. I said wait. They released her immediately. Shock rippled through the crowd. Mr. Choi stared at him, disbelief clear on his face. "Junho, this woman just humiliated you in front of everyone, in front of investors." Junho didn't look at him. His eyes never left Zena. "Everyone leave. The gala is over." Protests erupted instantly. Confusion, anger, but no one argued long. When Lee Junho ended something, it ended. And within minutes, the hall began to empty. Zena stood frozen, legs shaking, her uniform soaked with wine, her pulse roaring in her ears. She had done it. She had warned him. Whether she survived what came next was no longer in her control. They escorted her through a private corridor into a small office. No windows, one desk, 2 chairs, cold lighting, the door closed, locked. Zena sat down slowly, folding her hands in her lap to stop them from shaking. Her mind replayed the conversation she'd overheard in the kitchen earlier, the soft laugh, the casual cruelty. "After he signs everything over tonight, the poison is tasteless. It'll look like a heart attack, and we'll have controlling shares before anyone questions it." She swallowed hard. She should have walked away, should have pretended she heard nothing. But then she remembered the way Junho had smiled earlier at the orphans presenting flowers, unaware, untrusting people who would mourn him publicly while dividing his company privately. Her chest tightened. She would make the same choice again. The door opened. Lee Junho stepped inside alone. He closed the door and locked it himself. The sound echoed. Zena stood immediately. "I can explain." "Sit." Something in his voice made her obey without thinking. He didn't sit right away. Instead, he walked to the desk and placed the napkin down carefully between them, on the ink slightly smeared from the wine. "Poison," he read aloud, "in my drink." Her throat tightened. "Yes." Silence stretched between them. Then she whispered, "You believe me?" "I had the drink tested," he said. "Cyanide compound, enough to stop my heart within the hour." Her breath left her lungs. "Then you know why I did it. I know what you saved me from, he corrected. What I don't know is why a catering worker from Nigeria would risk everything to warn me. Ghana, she said quietly. I'm from Ghana. His brow lifted slightly. Ghana. And I didn't do it for you, she continued before she could stop herself. I did it because I couldn't live with knowing and doing nothing. He studied her, not like a criminal, not like prey, like a man trying to understand something unexpected. You planned this, he said. The wine. No, she said quickly. Had I panicked, there was no other way to get close enough without them noticing. Them, he repeated. You know who? She hesitated. Your business partner, Mr. Choi. I heard him talking to someone in the kitchen. They thought I didn't understand Korean, but I've been studying for 2 years. Something dark flickered across Junho's face. Choi. I'm sorry, Zena whispered. I know he's your friend. He was, Junho said coldly. Mice, now he's a dead man. The certainty in his voice made her shiver. What happens to me? He looked at her for a long moment. You saved my life, which means you're now under my protection. Her breath caught. I didn't ask for that. You didn't need to, he said. No one who saves me walks away unguarded. That's how my world works. She nodded slowly, exhaustion washing over her. What happens now? His gaze softened just slightly. Eyes, now everything changes. Junho didn't leave immediately. After saying those words, he remained standing, studying Zena as if trying to solve a puzzle. Not the way men at the gala had looked at her earlier, invisible and dismissive, but with focus, calculation, curiosity. Zena shifted under his gaze. You're staring. I'm deciding, he replied. Her throat tightened. Deciding what? Whether you're reckless or remarkable. She let out a shaky breath. And I don't feel remarkable. No one ever does. He turned and unlocked the door. Come with me. Her pulse spiked. Where? Somewhere safer than this room. 2 guards appeared immediately in the hallway. They straightened when Junho stepped out. Escort her, he ordered. No restraints. Treat her as a guest. Zena blinked. That alone told her how drastically everything had shifted. They led her through corridors she hadn't seen before. Private elevators, quiet halls away from the chaos of the ruined gala. She could still hear raised voices echoing faintly behind closed doors. Mr. Choi's voice cut through once, sharp and defensive, before being silenced. Zena flinched. Junho noticed. He won't touch you, he said without looking back. Not now, not ever. What about later? She asked softly. He stopped walking, turned to face her. The guards halted respectfully. There is no later where anyone harms you. Yeah, do you understand? The certainty in his tone made her chest ache unexpectedly. They reached an underground garage where a black sedan waited, engine already running. Junho opened the back door himself and gestured for her to get in. Zena hesitated. Am I under arrest? No, he said simply. She slid into the seat. As soon as the door closed, the tension she'd been holding back finally cracked. Her hands started shaking violently. She clasped them together, trying to hide it. But it was useless. Junho watched her from the opposite seat. You're safe now. Breathe. She tried, failed, tried again. I really thought I'd die tonight. You didn't, he said, because you acted instead of hiding. The car pulled away smoothly, leaving the venue and her old life behind. They rode in silence for several minutes, the city lights blurring past the windows. Zena's breathing eventually steadied, though her heart still thudded painfully. Why didn't you ask more questions? She finally said. I already asked the important ones, Junho replied. And you trust my answers? I trust the test results, he said, and I trust my instincts. She glanced at him. What are they saying now? That you didn't do this for money or attention. She scoffed softly. If I wanted money, I wouldn't have thrown wine on a CEO in front of witnesses. A corner of his mouth lifted. Exactly. The car slowed. On turning into a gated property she didn't recognize. High walls, guards, cameras, the kind of place no one entered by accident. This isn't a hotel, she murmured. No, he said. It's my home. Her nerves flared again. Why bring me here? Because whoever worked with Choi may still be looking for loose ends, he said evenly. And you're now a loose end they'll want to eliminate. Her silence confirmed her fear. They were escorted inside. The house was quiet, minimalist, intimidating in its calm. Zena suddenly felt very small in her wine-stained uniform. Junho handed her a glass of water. She drank it greedily. Sit, he said, motioning to a leather couch. This time it wasn't an interrogation chair. That alone felt different. He sat across from her, leaning forward slightly. Tell me everything from the beginning. She hesitated only a second before speaking. She told him about arriving in Seoul 3 years ago on a work visa, on about struggling with the language, the loneliness, the homesickness, about how she took the catering job because it paid better than teaching English. You're a teacher? He asked. Was, she said. Back home. Here I'm whatever pays the bills. He nodded, understanding more than she expected. She told him about tonight, how she'd been refilling champagne when she heard voices in the back kitchen, how she'd frozen when she recognized Mr. Choi's voice, how she'd stayed hidden, listening, translating every word in her head until she understood the full plan. After he signs the merger documents tonight, the poison takes effect, untraceable. We'll control the company before anyone asks questions. How did you get close enough to warn me? Junho asked. I volunteered to serve your table, she said. I knew if I tried to tell security, they wouldn't believe me. They'd think I was crazy or looking for attention. And so I had to make you notice me in a way that couldn't be ignored. By humiliating me publicly, he said. By saving you publicly, she corrected. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect. You could have walked away, he said quietly. Most people would have. Then I'd be just like them, Zena said, watching someone die and doing nothing. Junho straightened. That answer seemed to settle something inside him. I'll have clothes brought for you, he said, standing. You'll stay here tonight. And after that? She asked. He paused at the doorway. After that, we decide what happens next. The door closed softly behind him. Zena leaned back against the couch, heart racing. She had walked into that gala as nobody. She had walked out under the protection of the most powerful man in Seoul, and she had no idea what that would cost her. Zena didn't sleep. She lay on the edge of the bed in the guest room, unfully dressed in borrowed clothes that smelled faintly of lavender and something expensive. The sheets were soft beneath her fingers, untouched. Every sound in the house made her body tense. The hum of the heating system, distant footsteps, a door closing somewhere far away. Safety felt unfamiliar, suspicious. At some point near dawn, there was a light knock. She sat up instantly. Yes? The door opened slowly. Junho stepped in, no longer in the wine-stained tuxedo. And now he wore a simple black shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms marked with old scars. He looked human, tired. You're awake, he said. I don't really sleep when my life changes overnight, she replied. He nodded as if that made sense. I had my security team investigate Mr. Choi's activities. You were right about everything. Her stomach dropped. Did you? No, he said. Not yet, but he's contained, under watch. She exhaled slowly, unrelief and dread tangling together. Why are you here? She asked. Because you need to understand what happens next, he said. Choi wasn't working alone. We found evidence of at least 3 other people involved in the plot. Board members, people I trusted. Her chest tightened. Because of me, they know someone talked. Because of you, he corrected. They failed. Now they'll be desperate to fix their mistake. Silence settled between them. You should leave Seoul, he said finally. On tonight, I'll arrange it. New documents, money, somewhere safe. The offer was everything she'd once dreamed of, and yet something inside her resisted. No, she said. He frowned slightly. Explain. If I run now, she said, forcing her voice steady, I'll spend my whole life running, and they'll still win because I'll always be looking over my shoulder. You think staying here is safer? He asked. I think hiding hasn't worked for me so far, Zena replied. On, and I think the only reason I'm alive right now is because I stopped being invisible. Silence stretched between them. Finally, he said, "You don't understand what staying near me means." "I understand enough," she said. "It means danger, but at least it's honest danger, not slow, invisible death." He let out a short breath, almost a laugh. "You're not like anyone I've met." "No," she agreed. "I'm tired of being afraid." He straightened. "Then listen carefully." She did. My world doesn't forgive weakness," he said. "If you stay, people will assume you matter to me." Her heart skipped. "Do I?" His gaze held hers. "That's what we're deciding." Later that day, Junho summoned his senior executives. Xena wasn't invited. That alone told her how serious things were. She paced the living room, fingers worrying at the hem of her borrowed sweater. She felt exposed, stripped of control. Hours passed. When Junho finally returned, his jaw was tight, on his movements precise. "It's worse than I thought," he said. She looked up. "You're partners." "They promised pieces of my company to competitors," he replied. "People who've wanted to destroy me for years." Xena's blood ran cold. "And now they know you know." "Yes," he said, "which means they'll look for leverage." Her throat tightened. "Me." "Yes." The word hit like a physical blow. Junho stepped closer. "Which is why we need to change how the world sees you." She searched his face. How?" He hesitated. That alone frightened her more than any threat. "There is one option," he said slowly. "It will protect you completely." "And the cost?" she asked. He met her eyes. "It binds you to me publicly." The words hung heavy. "Marriage," she whispered. "Yes." She laughed once, breathless and disbelieving. "You're joking." "I don't joke about survival," he said. She shook her head. "I can't marry you. We barely know each other." "I'm not asking for love," he said calmly. I'm offering protection." "That's worse," she said. "You don't marry someone for protection." "In my world," he said, "you do." She paced away from him, heart pounding. "This morning you were offering me a way out. Now you want me bound to you." "Not permanently," he corrected. "Contractually, time-limited. After the danger passes, you walk away untouched, protected, free." She turned sharply. "And you?" "That's irrelevant." Something about that answer hurt more than it should have. Why me?" she asked softly. Junho didn't answer right away. "Because you were brave when it could have killed you. Because you told the truth when silence would have been easier. And because if I put someone beside me now, it must be someone I know won't betray me." Her chest tightened. "You don't know me." "I know enough," he said. "You didn't ask for money. You didn't run. You acted." She swallowed hard. "And if I say no?" He didn't threaten. He simply said, "Mom, then I'll still protect you. But not like this. Not as effectively." The honesty was terrifying. She sank onto the couch, head in her hands. Marriage, to a man who could end careers with a phone call, to a man whose enemies would gladly hurt her just to watch him suffer. And yet, she looked up at him. "If I do this, you don't control me. No ownership." His answer was immediate. "Agreed." "And when it ends," she said, voice shaking, "you let me go." He nodded once. "But on my word." She studied his face, searching for deception. Found none. "Why do I feel like this will change everything?" she whispered. "Because it will," Junho said quietly. The room fell silent. Xena took a deep breath. "Then we do it," she said. Something dark and protective flashed through his eyes. "Then you're mine to protect." And for the first time since the gala, Xena wasn't sure whether she should feel safe or terrified. The news spread faster than Xena expected. And by the next morning, whispers were already crawling through Junho's world. Not announced publicly, just enough to reach the right people. She's staying, she matters. He chose her. Xena felt it in the way the security guards looked at her now. Not curious, not dismissive, alert, respectful, as if she'd crossed an invisible line overnight. She hated how quickly her life had changed. She hated how part of her didn't hate it at all. Junho insisted she move into the main bedroom suite, and not to share it, but because it was the most secure part of the house. She argued, lost. This isn't about comfort, he told her. It's about survival. So she accepted it. They began preparing the contract quietly. No public lawyers, no long explanations, just terms laid out clearly. Protection, public acknowledgement, no intimacy without consent. Freedom at the end. It felt surreal signing her name beside his. "Oh, you don't have to do this," he said one last time before the documents were finalized. She met his eyes. "Neither do you." A muscle in his jaw flexed. "I choose to." That word, choose, followed her long after he left the room. The engagement ring arrived the next day, simple, elegant, deliberately understated. When Junho placed it in Zena's palm, his fingers brushed hers briefly. The contact sent a jolt through her that had nothing to do with fear. "Mom, this isn't a promise," he said quietly. "It's armor." She closed her fingers around the ring. "I've never had that before." "You do now." The first public appearance came sooner than she expected. A private dinner with limited guests, high-ranking business associates who needed reassurance that Junho hadn't lost control. Zena stood beside him, dressed elegantly but modestly, heart pounding as eyes assessed her from every angle. She felt exposed. Junho leaned closer, his voice low. "I breathe. They're watching me, not you." "That's not true," she murmured. His hand rested lightly at the small of her back, not possessive, anchoring. "It is now," he said. The effect was immediate. The room shifted. People smiled at her, spoke carefully, chose their words with precision. She realized then what being his wife, even in name, meant. Power by proximity. Later that night, when they returned home, the tension finally broke. Zena kicked off her heels and sank onto the couch, on exhaustion washing over her. "I don't know how you do this every day," she said. Junho loosened his tie. "You learn not to feel it." She looked at him. "That sounds lonely." Something flickered across his face. "It is." The admission surprised them both. Silence stretched. "I didn't expect you to introduce me the way you did tonight," she said carefully. "How did I introduce you?" "Like I mattered." His gaze held hers. "You do." Her heart stuttered. They stood there, on something fragile and electric hovering between them. Then his phone rang. The moment shattered. His expression hardened as he listened. "When? Where?" He ended the call and turned to her, voice calm but lethal. "Choi escaped custody." Her blood ran cold. "How?" "Inside help," Junho said. "Someone on my security team." Zena's hands clenched. "What does that mean?" "It means," he said, stepping closer, "he's desperate. On and desperate men make mistakes." "Or they hurt people," she whispered. "Not you," Junho said firmly. "Never you." That night, Zena couldn't sleep again. She lay awake, acutely aware of Junho's presence down the hall. The knowledge that he was near unsettled her in ways she wasn't ready to name. She thought of Mr. Choi, of the poison, of the ring on her finger. She also thought of Junho's hand at her back, the way his voice softened only when he spoke to her. Sometime past midnight, and there was a knock. She sat up. "Yes?" Junho stood in the doorway, fully dressed. "I won't stay long. I just wanted you to hear this from me." She nodded. "Choi made contact," he said, "with someone who knows your background." Fear spiked through her. "Who?" "Your former employer at the catering company," he said. "He's trying to find leverage, anything he can use against you or me." "There's nothing," she said quickly. "I have nothing to hide." "I know," Junho said. But he'll try anyway, which is why tomorrow we make this official." Her breath caught. "Official how?" "Public announcement," he said. "Engagement, marriage plans, the works." "That makes me a bigger target," she said. "It makes you untouchable," he corrected. "No one will dare harm you without declaring war on me." She studied him. "And you're willing to risk that?" His eyes held hers for a long moment. "I already am." Something in her shifted then. Junho, she said. He paused. Thank you, she said, for choosing me. His eyes softened just a fraction. You chose first, I'm just honoring it. He left, closing the door softly behind him. Xena lay back, heart racing, realizing something she hadn't expected. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was beginning to care, and that scared her more than any threat ever had. The first crack in the contract appeared quietly. It wasn't a touch, it wasn't a confession. It was a look. Xena noticed it 3 days later during a board meeting she hadn't been meant to attend. Junho's executives filled the room, voices low, tense, layered with power plays and subtle threats. She stayed seated beside him, hands folded neatly in her lap, playing the role expected of her. Invisible, decorative, safe, until one of the men laughed. Your new fiancé, he said casually, eyes sliding over Xena with barely concealed contempt. She's quite unexpected. The word carried weight, or judgment. Xena felt Junho's body shift beside her. Careful, Junho said softly. The room went still. I didn't mean offense, the man added quickly. Junho's hand moved then, not to threaten, not to display dominance, but to rest lightly over Xena's folded fingers. The gesture was small, intimate, possessive. Xena's breath caught. She's not unexpected, Junho continued. She's chosen, and anyone who disrespects her disrespects me. The message was clear, and the meeting ended shortly after. Back in the car, Xena finally spoke. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, he replied. You touched me, she said, not accusing, just stating fact. He glanced at her. Did you want me to stop? Her heart pounded. No. The word hung between them, heavier than any contract clause. That night, the house felt different. Not dangerous, charged. They passed each other in hallways more often, spoke longer. We shared meals that drifted from polite to personal without either of them acknowledging the shift. Junho learned she drank her coffee with too much sugar, hated silence when it felt imposed, and listened to old Ghanaian highlife music when she was homesick. Xena learned he counted steps when anxious, removed his watch before difficult conversations, and never spoke about his childhood unless asked directly. One evening, after a particularly tense call with his legal team, Mahi sat beside her on the couch instead of across the room. She stiffened instinctively. He noticed, pulled back slightly. I won't cross lines, he said. I know, she replied. I just need a moment. He nodded, waited. After a few seconds, she leaned back into the cushions. You can stay. He did. Their shoulders brushed, nothing more. It was somehow worse than a kiss. Then Choi broke the silence. Not directly, cowardly, efficient. Xena found the message waiting for her on the phone Junho had given her. You think hiding behind him makes you safe? You're just a distraction. When he's done with you, you'll be nothing again. Her hands shook as she read the next line. Come alone if you want this to end. Otherwise, people you love start dying. Junho saw the change in her face instantly. What did he say? She handed him the phone without a word. Junho's expression darkened. Not with rage, with cold intent. Juan, he's testing boundaries, he said, seeing how far he can push. And if he doesn't stop? She asked. He will, Junho said, permanently. That night, Junho didn't sleep. Xena knew because she didn't either. At some point, she left her room and found him standing by the window, city lights reflecting off the glass. You should rest, she said quietly. He didn't turn. I will, later. She stepped closer. Is it always like this? When waiting for the next move? For people like me, he said, yes. For people like me, she said, this is new. He turned then, looked at her carefully. You can still walk away. I'll make sure you're protected. She shook her head. I don't want to. The honesty surprised them both. Silence settled between them, thick and fragile. You know, she said softly, you never asked what I want after all this ends. He frowned slightly. What do you want? She looked up at him. Peace, or maybe something real. His expression softened. So do I. The next morning, everything escalated. One of Junho's warehouse facilities was set on fire. Not destroyed, warned. A message burned into the ground where only insiders would see it. Choi's signature. He's getting closer, Zena whispered when Junho told her. Yes, he agreed, which means this ends soon. How? Junho stepped closer, lowering his voice. One, by removing the illusion that you're only protected by a contract. Her heart raced. What does that mean? It means, he said, eyes locking onto hers, we stop pretending. She swallowed hard. Pretending what? That this marriage is just strategy. The air between them shifted. Junho, she began. He raised a hand, not to stop her, to steady himself. I won't touch you, not until you tell me to. Her voice was barely audible. And if I never do? Then I'll still protect you, he said, but I won't lie about what I feel. Her breath caught. What do you feel? He hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Before either of them could say more, his phone rang. Another interruption. Another reminder of the world they lived in. Junho looked at the screen, then at her. Stay close to me from now on. I already am, she replied, and this time, neither of them pretended the words meant nothing. And they stopped pretending the next day, not with words, with proximity. Junho didn't let Zena out of his sight. Meetings, drives, meals, she was always within reach, not hidden behind him, but beside him, equal, protected, and everyone noticed. The shift unsettled his people more than any show of force ever had. She's not just protection, one executive muttered after a meeting. She's becoming a liability. Junho heard. He didn't care. What he cared about was the way Zena flinched when footsteps echoed too loudly behind her, the way her smile faded whenever a phone buzzed unexpectedly, the way she tried to be brave when fear still lived under her skin. That night, the house was too quiet. Zena stood in the kitchen staring at nothing when Junho entered. He paused when he saw her hands trembling. Did he contact you again? He asked. She nodded. Not directly. Someone left flowers outside the gate. One with my mother's name on the card. Rage flickered across Junho's face, raw, dangerous. He's reminding you he can reach anywhere, he said. Yes. Junho closed the distance between them in 2 steps. He stopped just short of touching her. You're not alone anymore, he said quietly. She swallowed. I know. Say it, he said. I'm not alone anymore. Say it again. I'm not alone anymore. Her voice cracked this time. That was the moment something inside him snapped. Junho reached out and pulled her into his chest. Not roughly, not urgently, protectively. Zena froze for half a second, then melted. Her hands fisted into his shirt, her face pressed against his chest, breath shuddering. He wrapped one arm around her back, the other resting lightly against her hair, careful not to cage her. He didn't kiss her, he just held her. I've got you, he murmured. I won't let him take anything else from you. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. And I don't know how to stop being scared. You don't have to, he said. I'll be scared for you. She laughed weakly through tears. That doesn't sound reassuring. It should, he said. I'm very dangerous when I'm scared. That earned a real laugh. When she pulled back, their faces were inches apart, too close. Her eyes flicked to his lips, then back up. Junho noticed. His breath slowed. If I kiss you, he said carefully, there's no pretending after that. Her heart hammered. Then don't pretend. He hesitated. That hesitation was restraint, and it shattered her. Zena reached up and kissed him. Soft, tentative, nothing like the wine incident that started everything. This one was slow, careful, real. Junho's hands tightened at her waist, not claiming, grounding. He deepened the kiss only when she leaned in, only when she sighed against him like she'd been waiting for it. When they pulled apart, both of them were breathing harder. That, she whispered, mine wasn't strategy. No, he agreed. That was reckless. She smiled. Seems on brand for us. His forehead rested against hers. This makes you a target. I already was, she said. At least now I know why. He exhaled slowly. You should hate me for this. She shook her head. I don't. That was when the call came. Junho's phone buzzed violently. He checked it once and went still. What? Zena asked. Choi, he said. He made a move. Her stomach dropped. On where? Not here, Junho replied. Worse. He turned the phone so she could see the photo. Her breath left her lungs. It was her younger brother, tied, bruised, alive, a message beneath it. Come alone or he dies. Zena swayed. Junho caught her instantly. No, she whispered. No, no, no. He wants me emotional, Junho said coldly. Sloppy. I'll go, Zena said desperately. I'll talk to him. Junho's grip tightened. Or you won't. He's my brother. And you're my responsibility, he snapped, then softened instantly. I won't lose you, or him. You can't control this, Zena cried. I can, he said, and I will. He turned sharply, barking orders into the phone. The house erupted into movement. Zena grabbed his arm. Promise me you won't kill him just because you're angry. He looked at her, really looked at her. I promise, he said quietly, when I'll end him because he deserves it. Fear and trust collided inside her. You're going to war. Yes, he said, and this time it ends. He cupped her face gently, thumbs brushing away tears. Stay here, locked down, guarded. She nodded shakily. As he turned to leave, she grabbed his hand. Junho. He stopped. Come back, she said. Please. He leaned down and pressed a kiss to her forehead. I always do. But for the first time since she'd met him, Zena wasn't sure if that was a promise or a hope. Junho didn't go alone. He let Choi believe he would. That was the difference between rage and strategy. The location Choi sent was an abandoned factory near the river. Rusted steel, broken windows, the kind of place people disappeared in without questions. Junho arrived first, stepping out of the car with nothing but his phone and the calm that came before violence. Choi emerged from the shadows, smiling. You came, alone. Oh, I guess you really do care about her. Junho's eyes were empty. Where is the boy? Choi chuckled. Straight to business. No threats? No begging? You misunderstand, Junho replied. This is the last conversation you'll ever have. Choi's smile twitched. Big words from a man who followed my rules. Junho held up his phone. You think you made them? That was the signal. The lights snapped on. Armed men poured out of the shadows. Silent, efficient. Choi spun, on panic flashing across his face. You lied. I adapted, Junho said. There's a difference. Choi reached for his weapon. Gunfire erupted. It was fast, controlled. Over before Choi understood, he'd already lost. Choi fell to his knees, bleeding, breath ragged, eyes wild with disbelief. You don't get to hurt her anymore, Junho said calmly, stepping closer. You don't get to say her name? Choi laughed weakly. She chose you. You think she'll survive your world? Junho crouched. One she already has. The final shot was quiet. When Junho returned home hours later, the house was silent. Zena was waiting in the living room, knees drawn to her chest, eyes red but alert. She stood the moment she saw him. Is my brother? He's safe, Junho said immediately. He's being taken care of in my safe house. Zena's knees gave out. Junho caught her before she hit the floor. She sobbed into his chest, grief and relief colliding violently. He held her without words, absorbing everything she couldn't carry alone. After a long time, she pulled back. You killed him. Yes, he answered honestly. She studied his face. Do you regret it? No, he said, but I regret that you needed me to. Tears slid down her cheeks again. I didn't want this blood on you. It was already there, he said gently. You didn't put it there. She nodded slowly. Then this ends now. Junho stiffened. What ends? This life, she said. For me. For us. And I won't be the reason you keep killing. He looked at her for a long moment, then he surprised her. I was already planning to leave it, he said. Her breath caught. You were? You're not lying to me? I was protecting you, he corrected. There are things you don't dismantle overnight. She searched his eyes. And the contract? He reached into his jacket and pulled out folded papers. He tore them in half, once, twice. I don't need a contract anymore, he said quietly. I need a choice. Her heart pounded. Whose? Yours. Silence wrapped around them. I love you, Zena said suddenly. The words surprised her, but they were true. Junho closed his eyes briefly, like the confession hit somewhere deep and vulnerable. I've loved you since the moment you threw wine at me to save my life, he admitted. I just didn't think I deserved to say it. She stepped closer. Do you still think that? No, he said, because you're still here. They kissed then. Not desperate, not careful, certain. The world outside could burn. They'd already survived worse. The city didn't stop just because their war ended. Seoul still breathed outside the windows, cars humming, lights glowing, people chasing ordinary lives that felt impossibly distant from what Zena and Junho had survived together. For the first time since the gala, there were no alarms, no whispered threats, no phones vibrating with bad news, just quiet. Zena stood by the balcony doors wrapped in one of Junho's jackets, watching the city she'd almost disappeared in. When Junho joined her, he didn't speak right away. He simply stood beside her, close enough that their arms brushed. I used to think silence meant danger, she said softly. Now it feels like permission to breathe. He nodded. I used to think peace was weakness. She looked at him. What do you think now? That I was wrong about a lot of things. She smiled faintly. Mom, me too. They didn't rush anything after that. No grand announcements, no forced celebrations. Junho quietly dismantled the last of the alliances that kept him tied to bloodshed. Assets were sold, power redistributed, names erased, people noticed, some didn't approve, but no one challenged him. Zena watched the transformation with careful eyes, afraid to hope too much, afraid that one wrong move would drag them back into darkness. One evening, weeks later, Junho came home earlier than usual. He found her in the kitchen, barefoot, humming softly as she cooked jollof rice. The sight stopped him. He realized then that this was the life he'd been fighting for without knowing it. I'm done, he said. She turned. With dinner? He smiled slightly. With the Empire. Her breath caught. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything, he said. I want a future that doesn't require you to look over your shoulder. She walked to him slowly. And what if I still do sometimes? Then I'll still be there, he replied, just not with a gun. She laughed quietly, pressing her forehead to his chest. I didn't plan to fall in love with you. Neither did I, he said. You ruined everything. And you're not mad? No, he said. I'm grateful. Months later, there was a wedding. Not extravagant, not secretive, just honest, no contracts. Why no deals, only choice. When Zena walked toward him, Junho didn't see the woman who once trembled in fear or the catering worker everyone overlooked. He saw the woman who saved his life when it would have been easier to walk away. The woman who chose courage over silence. The woman he chose every day. Later that night, as they stood alone beneath soft lights, Zena rested her head on his shoulder. Do you ever think about that night? She asked. The wine? All the time, he admitted. It cost me everything, she smiled, and gave you something better. He kissed her hair. It gave me you. And for the first time in his life, that was enough. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fight or run. Sometimes it's speaking up when silence would be safer. Choosing love when fear tells you not to. Because the right choice doesn't always arrive gently. Sometimes it arrives with shaking hands, spilled wine, and the courage to change everything. So let me ask you. One, if you were Zena, would you have stayed silent or would you have risked everything to save him? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because more powerful stories like this are coming your way. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.